Great time to be out in the garden, enjoying the outside, and getting the garden ready to plant. So today we're gonna do a little planting. We're gonna plant some onions, and we'll show you exactly the way to do it. Went through with the tiller, got it all tilled up and loosened the soil up, and last fall added a whole bunch of organic matter, a lot of soil amendment to work into the soil, and let that kind of break down all winter. Just tilled it back in again this spring, and it's like perfect. It's ready to plant. So we're going to do some onions. I'm going to show you how I kind of start my onion plants. So these are onion plants, and I've got a variety that's called Candy, and I've also got a white variety that's called Dulce Grande. And if you can look at these come shipped in from Texas, and they're just ready to plant. So we'll just unbundle those and we'll start planting the onions. But these are onions that I didn't soak overnight. So these roots, they come in, they get a little bit dry, and once they get a little bit dry, it takes a while for those to rehydrate up and for your plants to take off. So sometimes you'll have a little bit of transplant shock or a little transplant loss if you don't hydrate those up. These I hydrated just overnight. It's barely been 12 hours, and look at the difference on the roots. Those roots that were dry are now plumped up. You can see they've started to absorb up that moisture, and they're plumping up, and they're going to be perfect to transplant. So what a difference it makes between the onions, how dry they are or how nice and moist and plump they are. They'll transplant a lot better when you soak those onions before you plant. So I've prepared this soil bed ready to go. What we'll do is we'll just make a little trench for the onions, and I'll go right down the middle here with my furrower, weeder, and we'll just make a little trench, and this is where we're going to put the onions. After I trench, I like to put a little bit of fertilizer down in the bottom. So the Natural Guard plant starter fertilizer, excellent fertilizer for getting plants established and getting them to take off. It lasts about 6 to 8 weeks. So we'll start with the plant starter fertilizer, and then I'll switch to a tomato and vegetable food for the onions to really get them growing and to get some good size to the bulbs. But I like to put that fertilizer down before I plant, and it's just a fine uniform granule. This is all organic fertilizer, so you can see right there it's just a uniform pellet, and you want to put it in fairly heavy. So we're just going to sprinkle it right down the rows, right where the onions are going to be. And this fertilizer has all the beneficial microbes and mycorrhiza in it, as well as a good complement of organic fertilizers, and it has just basically everything the plants need to really get started for the first 6 or 8 weeks, and it'll feed them for that long. This is a unique fertilizer in the fact that it has archaea in it, and the archaea are a little bit different from say your mycorrhiza, your other beneficial microbes, because it will actually help break the nutrient down, make it available to the plants a lot faster. So the Natural Guard, the new selection, the new line of fertilizers, they all have archaea, mycorrhiza, beneficial microbes and bacteria in there, plus all the natural fertilizers to make all that nutrient quickly available to the plants, where most organic fertilizers are a little bit slow. So we put those in. I'm going to pull a bundle of onions out, and it's very easy to plant those onions. Once you get the rubber band off, it's a lot easier. All right, so I'll take those onions and just lay them out about 1 every 3 inches. You want them to be about 3 inches apart, because these onions will eventually get about 4 to 5 inches across. So you can get nice, really big onions out of Candy and Dulce Grande. And if you plant them too close, then your bulbs don't fill out. They won't develop the way they're supposed to. And so we want them about every 3 inches. And then as they're growing, we'll start using the onions, and we'll use every other onion for like green onions or for small, early onions. And then when we separate them, then instead of being 3 inches apart, they'll be 6 inches apart. And at 6 inches apart, then we'll get like perfect, nice, big, huge onions that will keep really well. You want to be really careful separating those roots out, because once they really start to plump up, then you don't want to tear the roots off the bottom. So just be gentle as you're pulling those onions apart so you don't tear the roots right off. Let's start with those and see how that works. That should give us enough to cover up. Then what we want to do is I'll just stand those onions up and push that dirt in around them. So super easy to plant. Kind of pack the dirt in around so they don't fall or tip over or move, because it does get windy at our house here. Just super easy to just stand those up. You do have to crawl around a little bit, but it's enjoyable just sticking your fingers down in the dirt. And we'll do one more. Once we get those planted, got a couple different ways we can water them. I like to really, using the plant starter fertilizer works great, but the Kangaroots from Bush Doctor is amazing to get the root system to establish even faster. So when I soaked them in water, I soaked them in the Kangaroots overnight. Kangaroots just encourages so much root development. It really helps the plants get established faster and get that small root system to turn into something that they can pick up the water and nutrient that they need. So Kangaroots is so important to get those watered with. So I'll usually mix some up after I get them planted, water them with it just a little bit, just to get those started. We don't need to really saturate them too much, because what I'm going to do is, after the Kangaroots really soaks in really well, I'll put my soaker hose right down the row. And I like to use a soaker hose to water with, because I can control the water a lot better. So that soaker hose is eventually going to just go right down the row, right next to the onions. And our soil really holds moisture quite well, so I can get away watering the onions probably once a week, even in the middle of the summer. Maybe a little bit more when we get those 95, 100-degree days. But with that soaker hose, it'll soak down nice and deep and keep those onions saturated, that soil around the onions and that root zone saturated with water when they really need it through the hot part of the summer. So easy to plant those onions. Critical that you soak that root system so that those roots will hydrate up, and you'll have a lot better success transplanting when you're using the Kangaroots and a great organic fertilizer like the plant starter from Natural Guard.